So the Russian State Duma and the Kremlin have increased the conscript age to 70 years old. That's right, 70 years old. They are doing this to avoid another large-scale mobilization, which would be hugely unpopular. The rule applies to Russians that previously served in the military and reads that those in the higher ranks have an age cap of 70 years old, while those that served in the junior ranks have an age cap of 60. Last fall, Putin announced the mobilization of 300,000 reservists, which prompted tens of thousands of Russians to flee the country. And this is part of a larger problem in Russia. They have a manpower problem. They're losing people at an alarming rate in that country. 1 million Russians have fled the country, most of whom were under 40. Considering Russia's male life expectancy is 65, that is staggering. Losing that many men to both the war as well as to fleeing the country because you have stupidly started this war. They have the same life expectancy as Haiti. The Ukraine war may see the Russian male life expectancy rate drop further, with some more dire predictions saying that Russian men may only live to an average of 62 years old in 2024/2025. In the US, which is even on the lower end of the Western nation life expectancy range, a man can expect to live an additional 12 years longer than their Russian counterparts. It's an additional 15 years for such US allies as Norway and Japan. Outside of the war, Russia's life expectancy problem is driven by smoking, where 70% of the men smoke in Russia, alcoholism, where 52% of Russia's preventable deaths involve alcohol. They have a pretty astonishingly high HIV and AIDS death rate, where Russia is 3 times higher than the US. They have a huge suicide rate, where Russia has an astonishing 38 male suicides per 100,000 per year, versus the US that has 22 per 100,000 per year. And strangely, Russia has a tuberculosis problem where it has double the cases over Western nations. But that's not all. That's not all that's driving the problems in population for Russia. For years, they have had a low birth rate. A mere 1.5 births per woman is what Russia experiences right now, and that has been largely unchanged for many years. This level, in order for you to reach replacement rate, needs to be at least 2.1. Now, they aren't as bad as China, who's at 1.3 births per woman, and the U.S. fares marginally better at 1.7, but unlike Russia and China, the U.S. is bolstered by a robust and young immigration population that continues to filter in. There are actually 5 million less Russians now than there were in 1990. In that same time, the U.S. grew by 80 million people. In 1960, the U.S. had 60 million people more than Russia. Now that has ballooned to 185 million more than Russia. The U.S. will hit 400 million people in 2100. Meanwhile, Russia will fall to 84 million from 143 million. Like China, that will lead to a Russian collapse sometime this century. That's just unsustainable. Some make the argument that kidnapping the Ukrainian children was one way that they were trying to put a small band-aid on this. They were saying that taking Ukraine was going to bolster their population. Well, it would have temporarily, but that measure wouldn't have solved the larger problem. And that is because Ukraine actually has a lower birth rate than Russia and is on par with China at around 1.3 births per woman. The difference is Ukraine didn't start this stupid war, therefore causing more deaths among the young male population. Russia is starting to realize this and therefore will not be conscripting as many young men. This is why they're going to be conscripting older men. But I can't imagine what a front line with 50 to 70-year-olds will look like. I can't imagine what the feeling will be when a 65-year-old man gets orders to go fight. 62 is the pension age in Russia. Perhaps they're trying to save money by conscripting 62-year-olds and older and don't have to pay the pensions if these men die in battle. But this means that some of these men could have fought in the Russian war in Afghanistan that ended 33 years ago. And actually, more astonishingly, it means that by traditional Russian rules for compulsory service, which are capped at 27 years old, a man that is older than 61 years old right now was likely too old for compulsory service in the war in Afghanistan 33 years ago. But sure, let's send them to Ukraine now. Nothing says a war is going well like sending your elderly to the front line. This is truly an unreal scenario developing in Russia.